Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Scaling Smarter, How a Modern Tech Stack Fuels Diagnostic Lab Growth. We're excited you could join us. I'm Megan Billingsley from Studio ID, and I'll be moderating today's event. Today, we are going to dive deep into how diagnostic labs can boost operational efficiency, improve data visibility, and lay the foundation for future growth and innovation by implementing a unified system solution like Salesforce. Specifically, we'll discuss how Veracyte is working with Torrent Consulting to implement Life Sciences Cloud. Please note the slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button located in the top right corner of your presentation window. If you need technical assistance, click on the Help widget located on the bottom left corner of your console. We encourage you to submit questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Q&A widget at the bottom of your console. We will try to answer these during the webcast, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, it will be answered later via email. Please know we do capture all questions. I'm thrilled to be joined by three speakers today: Dave Swiden, Senior Director, Salesforce Engineering with Veracyte Inc., Allison Getty, Healthcare and Life Sciences Practice Lead with Torrent Consulting, and Brad Sherman, Salesforce Consultant with Torrent Consulting. And to kick off, I'd like to ask our speakers to introduce themselves and their work. So Dave, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm Dave Swiden, Senior Director of Salesforce Engineering, Veracyte. I started here in 2024, so I've been here just almost a year now. I've been in IT industry for about 30 years plus, with about half of that time focused on Salesforce as a platform. And so I'm excited to be here.
Excellent, thank you. And Allison, please tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Allison Getty. I'm the practice lead for healthcare and life sciences here at Torrent Consulting. Over the last 9 years at Torrent, I've helped deliver over 50 Salesforce implementations across the pharma, biotech, medtech, and provider sectors. So my focus is really on blending strategic insight with hands-on Salesforce expertise to help HLS organizations innovate with confidence.
Excellent, thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Brad.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brad Sherman. I am a Salesforce consultant at Torrent. I've been here for 6 years, but in the Salesforce ecosystem for coming up on 11 now. I've been focused on the healthcare and life sciences side for about the last 4 of them. I'm really excited to get into the webinar.
Excellent. Thank you all for taking the time today. So Dave, could you kick us off by talking about some of the operational challenges diagnostic labs like Veracyte face?
So my experience with healthcare is more recent in my career. I spent most of my time in high tech, but I don't know that our challenges are all that much different between healthcare, lab diagnostics, and other places I've been. I think a lot of the challenges that come when it comes to operational challenges are due to evolution of business, evolution of systems, and ultimately a lot of those lead to technical debt. A lot of it leads to data silos when you've got multiple systems that you're dealing with. In the world of healthcare and the world of diagnostics specifically, we do have some uniqueness in terms of, we serve patients at the end of the day. And when we need to process a test and accept an order, we've got a lot of things that we have to capture from an accuracy perspective to make sure that, one, those orders get created in systems, 2, those orders get processed through tests, and the tests get out to the patients. And part of that is we get a lot of data in different formats. And so our business teams tend to have to do a lot of swivel chair type activities where they're looking at physical documents to make sure that the data on those documents match what's in the system. And so those are definitely some of the challenges. And from an IT perspective, you can't always automate some of that. And so that's where I would say most of our business challenges are. And then the other area that I think, again, this is not necessarily unique to, a diagnostics lab, but, Veracyte in 2021 merged, and we have 2 companies that came together. I would say the processes for the different product lines are very similar, but we've also got additional systems that come into play when companies merge. And one of the challenges is, how do you align your business processes, and then how do you actually merge those technologies into one stack so that everybody's working with the same data from the same systems and through the same processes.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dave. It's clear how those operational challenges, from data silos to technical debt, can really hold a lab back. Brad, can you share how implementing a unified solution like Salesforce Life Sciences Cloud can help labs overcome these barriers and unlock new opportunities?
Absolutely. Yep. So like Dave said, is when we talk to different labs, is we're hearing very similar challenges, whether they're diagnostic labs, research labs, or part of a broader clinical ecosystem. The same operational challenges consistently come up: fragmented systems, inconsistent data, and that growing technical debt. Having these issues doesn't just really slow things down, they can really impact compliance, timelines, and the desired outcomes. What makes Salesforce's Life Science Cloud really powerful here is the flexibility and the scalability. From the ground up, it's built to integrate with lab systems, whether via Fire, HL7, or even custom-built APIs. Gives you the ability to modernize your systems at your own pace, reducing complexity with Salesforce declarative tools and the click, not code approach. One of our biggest items that we heard was a lot of code in the previous orgs. So one of our implementation goals was to move to as much declarative solutions as possible. So as I'm sure a lot of people know, is we're never going to completely get rid of code. It's always going to be in there. But anyway, we could start to eliminate that tech debt, start to use those out-of-the-box Salesforce solutions, whether that be Omni Studio or Flow, is we can give the ability for administrators to manage these solutions easier moving forward, and keeping the tech folks focused on the optimizations of the code and the integrations. Also, while we're trying to reduce tech debt, is we can have the modern scalable platform with out-of-the-box capabilities. Salesforce out of the box is cloud-based and compliant. The labs don't have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to security, GxP alignment, and data privacy standards. Kind of adding in the ability to leverage Salesforce AI features in the future, whether that be Einstein, whether that be Agentforce, is it gives them the ability to leverage the whole tech stack from the whole Salesforce tech stack. Kind of summing up what I just said there, is Salesforce Life Sciences Cloud helps labs move from reactive to proactive, removing a lot of those barriers that we discussed before and allowing for accelerated workflows and processes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I would imagine that some people in our audience may not be that familiar with Life Sciences Cloud. So Allison, could you tell us a little about this fairly new product?
Yeah. So Life Sciences Cloud was released last year specifically for life sciences organizations. So those diagnostic labs, medtech, and pharma organizations. Really what makes it unique is that it is purpose-built for those organizations. And it really combines components from Health Cloud, Manufacturing Cloud, Omni Studio, which are really designed to work together out of the box. So this results in, as Brad said, less need for heavy customization and much lower total cost of ownership, especially for companies that we've seen that have been stacking licenses just to get the functionality they need by stacking those other clouds together. So really the core benefits that we see from Life Sciences Cloud really include streamlined operations, accelerating clinical research, and improving patient care. So it also helps to enable data management, that seamless collaboration and compliance, as well as the AI-powered insights. And really that ultimately leads to faster drug discovery, improved efficiency, and improved patient outcomes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for doing that, Allison. So Dave, for those who aren't familiar with Veracyte, could you tell us a little about the company and its products?
Sure. We're a genomic diagnostic company. We're based in San Francisco. We basically support clinicians as they make diagnostic, prognostic, and treatment decisions for challenging diseases, and that includes bladder, prostate, lung cancer, and thyroid. We've essentially grown organically and through acquisitions. Decipher and Veracyte merged, I think, in 2021, and so that obviously expands the product portfolio and obviously introduces certain challenges from a mergers and acquisition perspective.
I would imagine so. Thank you. And you mentioned that you'd been at Veracyte since 2024. So could you tell us what the tech stack looked like when you arrived?
Yeah, I mean, again, through mergers and acquisitions, you have multiple platforms. In today's world, right, most companies are going to be on Salesforce, for example. And so, you basically replicate your tech stack. And they're obviously built for different purposes. One's built for the Afirma products and one's built for the Decipher products, and they work great for those products. But as you start to expand your portfolio or try to make changes, or, if during your acquisitions and mergers, you're trying to actually align your business processes. And when you align your business process, things need to change in the systems. And so, the tech stack itself works on an individual basis, but it's hard to scale. And then again, you've got your business teams, logging into different systems to get different types of data out, and that's just not scalable long term. And so that's kind of where we're at.
So given that, then what did you see as the best path forward?
Coming into it, I had some preconceived notions on how you achieve, success when it comes to migrating systems and processes. But once I got into it, I realized that although I think the overall process for taking in an order and processing a test through and getting the final results out to our physicians and patients is pretty similar. The reality is, we have to evaluate whether could we use one of the platforms, for example, as the baseline and move it all over. But what I quickly came to learn is that it's just not it's not a reality. I mean, these systems were built over a long period of time. There's a lot of technical debt, and probably the best solution is to actually re-implement a CRM or a Salesforce solution that supports our business, and we future-proof it. And the only other thing I'd say is, that's not a problem in how the original systems were implemented. The reality is Salesforce, they've evolved at light speed. How you did things in Salesforce to customize workflows and automate things, 7 years ago is drastically different now. You had to write things in Apex, and you had to do a lot of Visualforce and code level changes to actually customize a system to do things that business needs from an automation perspective. 2019 and to now, Salesforce has introduced tools that make it easier to scale things, much more declarative, gets development teams out of having to do test classes. And so it's just far easier to do. And, it's really hard to go backwards when you've got all these new cool tools to try to scale a system and get rid of the old stuff, because that's all technical debt. And so that's why it sort of makes sense just to do a re-implementation and then, merge everything through that implementation into one instance.
And it really sounds like there's sort of the focus on process before technology. I really like that. And Brad, that sounds like something Torrent believes in too, right?
Yeah, it's something I really appreciate about the mindsets of everyone we have here at Torrent is everyone really likes to step back and understand the why of why is something happening that way. So instead of just meeting with the tech folks or instead of just meeting with the business teams, we really try to understand both of those processes so we can marry them up and implement a new solution that does respect both of the teams' times, the capability, and what they need to get done in the system. Like Dave said, is Veracyte had multiple different systems that they're logging into in a daily basis. So we really wanted to get a fundamental understanding of what they're doing with each of them and how can we begin to re-implement them using Salesforce's standard approach to as many of them as possible. So like we said, one of the big challenges is we have multiple different teams on multiple different products there, is we wanted to start to think about how do we standardize them underneath a one Veracyte system. So with that approach in mind is we did a multi-month discovery that wasn't just IT focused, and it kind of married up the business and the IT processes. As we started to learn about how everything was done, how everything was used in different ways, all roads led to the Salesforce Life Sciences Cloud product. Is a lot of the different challenges that we heard from the teams met perfectly to what the challenges that Life Sciences Cloud solves around those standardized approaches, around the integrations that we have, leveraging the compliant integrations and APIs like that. Is we just thought it was a perfect fit for what Veracyte needed. So our goal was to stand up the Veracyte team on a really strong foundational base. So we tried to standardize these approaches as much as possible. So when we need to think about pulling in the additional products in the future, it's not a matter of completely customizing the system again. We can start to standardize Veracyte's languages, the terms they use, because as we're thinking about order to cash, a lot of the processes are similar, and we want to use a lot of the same processes that we've already implemented in the past. So our goal was to set up a foundational platform with Salesforce so we could begin to pull all of the Veracyte products over underneath one implementation.
And the only thing I would add, just going back to the process before technology, and to be honest, I think people were probably tired of hearing me say that mantra when I first started here for the first 2 weeks. The reality, it's actually a formula that works. I mean, whether, I've implemented other types of systems in the past from an ERP perspective, and every successful implementation I've seen has been focused on really digging into the business processes, working with the business to see how they align their processes, document them, and then you layer that over the technology. I mean, the technology at the end of the day is the tool, right? To enable the business to do things, to enable the business to automate things. But if their processes aren't well aligned, and there's a lot of it depends, it makes it hard to implement technologies. And when you do that, things can in some ways, you can actually build solutions that aren't easy to scale. And so that's what we really want to avoid here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Allison, anything that you would add here to what Dave or Brad shared?
Yeah. So I think it's important to remember some of the earlier things that Dave said. They've got 2 live systems today, right? And we're introducing a 3rd. So we get to co-develop a very robust timeline on how we're going to go live in the new environment. So we didn't just show up and drop a timeline on Veracyte's lap. About 3/4 of the way through our discovery and design engagement, we went on site and walked through multiple iterations of what a roadmap could look like. So this was a collaborative working session. We had a whiteboard, luckily, and we're able to really, start and stop many times to say, this goes here, this doesn't. So it was a collaborative working session and not a reveal. So by the time we got to the final readout, there were no surprises. Everyone already knew what the timeline was, what was getting delivered when, because we had aligned on it weeks before. And that's really the goal of our discovery and design process, is to co-create that plan with the client, not for them. So Brad and the team did an absolutely outstanding job throughout. Continually, they were playing back what we were hearing, validating along the way, and adjusting course to make sure we were catching the right requirements at the right time. So again, going back to that process alignment before we jumped into the technology. So that kind of collaboration really sets the foundation for successful delivery.
That's great stuff. Thank you so much. And Dave, how did you feel about this gradual approach versus a big bang?
Well, I'm a fan of Big Bang. I've, done it in the past that way. The nice thing about a Big Bang is you go through a lot of work to get to a stage, and then one day, one night, essentially you turn one thing off and the other thing on, and when things run smooth, it's a good feeling, right? And it's smooth sailing. When you have more of a journey and you phase in things to do the same thing, they work great. The caveat is you got to make sure that if let's say you have a 3-year journey to get to an end state, right? You don't want to be asking yourself 4 years in that journey why you're not there yet. And a lot of times when you expand your roadmap, things come in that could derail things, right? It could derail the next phase of that cycle because you got to focus on another priority, and so now you're still in the same state. So I think that's why I like big bangs, because you kind of get it done all at once. But the reality, and at the same time, in our industry and in our world, right? Again, I can't emphasize enough, we serve patients at the end of the day, and what we want to make sure is we don't affect our ability to get those test results out to the patients. And so doing sort of a phased in approach where we start, with something small to stand up the instance to get to the next stage is actually, in this case, I think more favorable overall. So I'm totally comfortable with that direction.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Brad, what's the first big milestone for the Veracyte implementation?
So the first big one that we have is the go live of the current org. So we've been going through the build and implementation process with the Veracyte team over the last several months here. As we're learning a ton, we're starting to put together the org. Like we mentioned before, it's all that foundational approach. So we are trying to have minimal automations now, but building the system in a way that we can easily automate on top of it. As we start to learn more and more about the different Veracyte products, it allows us to really make sure we are designing something from the ground up that can be leveraged for the years to come. I think one of the great things we did about the discovery and design is we were very focused on the other products and how they're used in the different Salesforce implementations. So when we turn around and starting to put together the system for the newer product, we can leverage all of that knowledge that we learned over the last several months of discovery and make sure we are designing a standardized system that can be used for all of the different Veracyte products.
One of the, and it's kind of going back to the concept of the big bang versus a phased in approach. I mean, one of the interesting things about that is, what's the hardest thing of doing a digital transformation? It's usually not the technology piece. It's usually the change management piece, right? Business is impacted by this greatly. And they're not only impacted by the change, they're impacted because they actually have to play a big role in testing all this stuff. And so phasing in, a phased in approach actually sort of helps bring in business users, even at a smaller sort of subset of those users, to start to use the new system, and they can kind of help socialize and build a better change management message to get other people excited for the next phases. So I think, again, just kind of tagging a little bit off of the original question about big bang versus phased in approaches, I think that's another benefit.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Allison, how did Veracyte's having so many connected systems affect the timeline?
Yeah, that was a huge part of our overall timeline discussion. So, luckily we were able to look at the products that we're moving over to the new org and say, if we're launching this product, we need these 2 integrations live. If we want to launch this product, we've got 3 more dependencies. So how do we kind of back into building a full platform that supports all of the connected systems as well? So laying it out like that really helped us prioritize smartly and sequence that work in a way that actually supports the business and not the system. And I think, echoing what Dave said, it also supports that change management and user adoption as well.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. I think that that's a great point to end our main discussion. So in the time that we have left, I'd love to turn to some questions from our audience. Our first one here, Dave, is for you. And it says, did you get any internal pushback for working with an implementation partner?
Yeah, I did. I mean, anytime you're looking to engage with a partner, there's a cost to that. But the reality of the situation was, I have a team that's supporting multiple instances of Salesforce, both from a lights on perspective, and then also continuing to enhance those systems to support the business needs. And so we didn't have resources to be able to even go out and do a discovery and design effort. And so onboarding a partner was critical to getting us to move fast, to actually see where we need to go from a new systems, new technology, process alignment perspective. And Torrent came to the table before I joined Veracyte. And so I was able to piggyback on some of those conversations. And at the end of the day, convince other leaders that this is the right direction. This is the right partner to do a discovery and design effort. And, let's at least just take baby steps and do a discovery design effort and see where it goes from there. And if we like the output, then we continue down the path of working with Torrent to implement solutions.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Our next question is for Allison. What were you able to offer Veracyte that other partners couldn't?
Sure. So, I think what Dave hit on some of this already, but what set Torrent apart for Veracyte wasn't just our Salesforce expertise. It was really our ability to combine that deep understanding of the platform with our understanding of the diagnostic lab space and the reps that we've done there previously. So bring that technical acumen and the industry insight together to really make those decisions to align with the long-term vision of Veracyte's business strategy. So we also aren't looking to just implement a platform, right? We're looking to help chart that path forward, and that starts with how we engage So we don't lead with product. We said it several times here. We lead with process and want to take the time to understand how the business runs, where it's going, and how technology can enable it, not dictate that growth. That approach really helped Veracyte prioritize intelligently, design scalable solutions, and make investment decisions with clarity. I think a lot of partners can deliver a great system, right? But few can deliver a system that's grounded in that strategic alignment and built to evolve with the business with that expertise that we have. So that's really what brought Torrent to the table, and what's, I think propelled our relationship forward.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I think we've got time for one more question, so we'll end with this one for Brad. How firm are the milestones on Veracyte's 3-year timeline?
Yeah, great question. I think that one's a tough to answer, as we've been using an agile approach to the implementation here. We've been trying to figure out what are the highest priority items and focus on implementing them as we learn them from the teams. So the more we move through the project, the more we get a better idea of what we need for the immediate future. So like the team mentioned at the start of this webinar, was that we did come up with a 3-year plan at the end of the discovery and design. But the more we're getting through this project, the more we know about what needs to be done on the system and what we need to build to make sure that it's a successful approach for all the different products. We can continue to find that as we get closer. So our plan is to pull up towards the end of this project and make sure we can start to talk about what comes next. How close is this to the initial timeline that we developed during the discovery and design? And one of the great things about Torrent is we're willing to pivot and kind of change those timelines based on what's needed. Is like Allison said, is we don't want to just have it completely product focused. We want to make sure that we're respecting the Veracyte needs and their processes so we can implement the best solutions possible.
One thing I might add to what Brad was saying about the timeline. I mean, I think the one area, and I see this all the time because I look at the timeline a lot, is that the way it's been laid out is everything is sort of a foundational element to the next phase. And I think that's a very logical scenario for us, because I think it's going to make it easier for us to do the next phase of on the roadmap over time. So, and part of that's, a lot of that comes with the help of Torrent, and then us working with Torrent to figure out what is that logical flow of phases.
Excellent. Thank you so much for adding that. That does it for us today. I'd like to thank Dave, Allison, and Brad for a great discussion. We appreciate you sharing your insights and expertise with us. And of course, I'd like to thank our audience for joining us today as well. We hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.